Claire noticed the change long before she allowed herself to admit it. It began with silence, not the peaceful kind that once lived naturally between them on quiet Sunday mornings, while coffee steamed beside the kitchen window. Not the comfortable silence of two people who knew each other deeply enough to rest inside each other's presence. This silence felt cold, heavy, like something slowly dying in the room between them. Ethan still kissed her goodbye every morning before work, but the kisses felt distracted now, rushed and automatic. He still asked about her day during dinner, but his attention drifted somewhere else before she finished answering. Sometimes she caught him staring at his phone with a softness in his eyes she hadn't seen directed at her in a very long time. At first, Claire blamed stress. Marriage changes people, she told herself. 10 years together couldn't feel like the beginning forever. They had responsibilities now. Bills, endless work schedules. Their little boy Massam, who filled every room with noise and every week with another school project or soccer practice. Maybe this was just adulthood. Maybe everyone became lonely eventually. But late one Thursday night, while Ethan showered upstairs, his phone vibrated on the kitchen counter. Claire looked over without thinking, then froze. A message preview lit up the screen. "I miss you already." A red heart appeared beside an unsaved number. Claire's stomach tightened instantly. The kitchen suddenly felt too quiet. She stared at the glowing screen, while her heartbeat climbed painfully into her throat. Her fingers curled against the edge of the counter to steady herself. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe she was overthinking. But before logic arrived with excuses, her body already knew. Women always talked about intuition like it was magic. It wasn't magic. It was pattern recognition. Tiny changes collecting silently until one moment finally connected all the pieces. Claire didn't open the phone. She could have. The password was still Masum's birthday, just like it had always been. But something stopped her. Because she understood with terrifying clarity that the moment she looked inside, their marriage would split into two versions forever. The version before she knew, and the version after. So instead, she quietly made Ethan's lunch for the next day. Turkey sandwich. No tomatoes, extra mustard, just the way he liked it. When he came downstairs with wet hair and tired eyes, she smiled so naturally that even she almost believed it. Almost. Over the next several weeks, Claire became someone she barely recognized. She watched everything, every late meeting, every smile at his phone, every moment he turned the screen face down. The worst part wasn't the suspicion. It was the pretending. Ethan still held her hand in public, still laughed at Masum's jokes during dinner, still touched her waist gently whenever he passed behind her in the kitchen. He acted like a husband, and somehow that hurt even more. One night, Claire stood alone in the bathroom, removing her makeup when she suddenly found herself studying her reflection like a stranger. 36 years old, faint lines near her eyes, softness around her stomach she never fully lost after pregnancy. She remembered the way Ethan used to look at her years ago, like she was the center of his entire world. When had that look disappeared? Or worse, had it disappeared because someone else had it now? The thought nearly crushed her. She slid down against the bathroom wall and cried silently, into her hands so Ethan wouldn't hear. Not because of another woman. Because betrayal changes the way you see yourself. It turns mirrors into weapons. A week later, Ethan forgot his phone at home. Claire found it lying on the bed while folding laundry. For nearly 10 minutes, she simply stared at it. Then slowly, with trembling hands, she picked it up. She expected rage, explicit messages, clear evidence. Instead, what she found hurt in a completely different way. Her name was Ava. The messages weren't sexual. They were emotional. Painfully emotional. She understands me. I feel alive around you. I haven't felt seen like this in years. Claire sat slowly on the edge of the bed as her vision blurred with tears. Seen. That word shattered something inside her. Because she realized this wasn't just an affair. It was intimacy. The one thing she thought still belonged to them. Then she found another message from Ethan sent only days earlier. I don't know how to leave without destroying my family. Claire stopped breathing for a second. Leave. Not cheat. Not lie. Leave. Footsteps echoed downstairs. Ethan was home. Claire quickly locked the phone and placed it back exactly where she found it. Then she rushed into the bathroom and splashed cold water against her face until her skin burned. That night during dinner, Massom excitedly explained a school project while Ethan smiled beside him. Claire watched her husband carefully. This man had held her hand through her miscarriage years earlier. This man had cried when Massom was born. This man knew every scar on her body. And somehow he had become a stranger sitting 3 feet away from her. After Massom went to sleep, Ethan settled beside her on the couch. "You okay?" he asked softly. The concern in his voice almost made her laugh, or scream. Instead, she turned toward him and asked the bravest question of her life. "Are you in love with someone else?" Everything changed after that. Ethan froze instantly, not dramatically, not guiltily, just completely still. And in that silence, Claire got her answer. His face lost color. His eyes searched hers desperately, like he was trying to find an escape route that no longer existed. "How long have you known?" he whispered. Claire felt something inside her crack quietly. Not because he admitted it, because he didn't deny it. "I asked you a question." Ethan lowered his eyes. "Yes?" One word. 10 years collapsed beneath it. Claire stood up so quickly the coffee table shook. Massom's crayons rolled across the surface. "How long?" she demanded. "Claire, how long?" 8 months. Her chest tightened painfully. 8 months. 8 months of lies. 8 months of pretending. 8 months of sleeping beside her while loving someone else. "Do you love her?" Claire asked, though she already knew the answer. Ethan's silence answered again. Claire began crying then. Not graceful tears, not quiet sadness. The kind of crying that steals air from your lungs and twists your entire body apart. Ethan immediately stood. "Claire, please, don't touch me." Her voice broke violently. He stopped moving. "I never wanted to hurt you." Claire let out a hollow laugh through tears. "That's what everyone says right before they destroy someone." Ethan covered his face with both hands. For the first time in years, he looked small. "Broken. I didn't plan this," he whispered. "Do you think anyone plans this?" Silence swallowed the room. Then Claire asked the question that truly changed everything. Not why her. Not what does she have that I don't. Not even are you leaving. Instead, she whispered painfully, "When did you stop talking to me?" Ethan slowly looked up. Confusion flickered across his face. Claire wiped tears from her cheeks with shaking hands. "When did we become strangers living in the same house?" Something shifted in his expression then. Something deeper than guilt. Claire sat down, again exhausted. "I knew something was wrong long before I knew about Ava," she whispered. "But every time I tried to ask, you said you were tired, busy, stressed." Her voice cracked. "You stopped letting me know you." Ethan sank slowly into the chair across from her. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then quietly, almost painfully, he said, "I think it started after your mother died." Claire blinked in shock. Of all the things she expected, it wasn't that. "You disappeared into grief," Ethan whispered. "And I didn't know how to reach you anymore. That was 3 years ago." "I know." "And instead of telling me you were lonely." He looked away. "I told someone else." The honesty hurt more than excuses would have. Claire cried silently again. Not only because of the affair, because deep down she remembered those years too. The numbness after her mother's death, the emotional distance, the nights she avoided conversation, because surviving grief already exhausted her. Still, pain burned through her chest. "You should have fought harder for us." Ethan's eyes filled instantly. "I know." That answer shattered her more than denial ever could. Upstairs, Massom shifted in his sleep. Their son. Their home. Their entire life balanced on the edge of this conversation. Claire finally asked the question she feared most. "Are you leaving?" Ethan looked at her for a very long time. "I don't know." Brutal honesty again. Claire nodded slowly while tears rolled down her cheeks. Then she whispered something she never imagined saying aloud. "I think I'd hate you less if you had just slept with someone." Ethan looked devastated. "No," Claire said through tears. "Do you understand what hurts the most? You gave someone else the parts of you that used to belong to me." Silence. Then suddenly Ethan started crying too. Not controlled tears. Real grief. "I miss you," he whispered brokenly. "Even when I'm sitting beside you, I miss you." Claire stared at him in shock, and for the first time in months, she truly saw her husband. Not a villain, not a monster, just a deeply flawed man drowning beside another drowning person. That didn't excuse what he did, but it complicated it, and complicated pain is harder to hate. They talked until sunrise. About grief, about loneliness, about all the tiny wounds couples ignore until they become impossible to cross. Ethan admitted he had ended things with Ava twice already, but kept returning because he no longer knew how to fix what was broken. At home, Claire admitted there were nights she pretended to sleep because conversation felt emotionally exhausting. They confessed truths they should have spoken years earlier. Ugly truths, tender truths, human truths. At 6 in the morning, sunlight slowly filled the kitchen. Ethan looked completely shattered. "So what happens now?" he asked quietly. Claire looked at the man she married, the man who broke her heart, the man whose loneliness somehow mirrored her own. Then she asked one final brave question. "Do you want to rebuild this marriage? Or do you just want relief from the guilt?" Ethan stared at her, and after a long silence, tears filled his eyes again. "I want to fall back in love with my wife." Claire cried harder then, because for the first time in years, it finally felt like truth. Not romance, not fantasy, truth. It took nearly 2 years to heal. Therapy, angry nights, painful conversations, moments where both of them nearly gave up. But slowly, honesty replaced silence. Ethan cut all contact with Ava. Claire learned how to speak before resentment buried itself inside her heart. And little by little, they found each other again. Not the younger versions they once were. Something wiser, more fragile, more real. 2 years later, Claire stood beside the kitchen window one Sunday morning while coffee brewed nearby. Ethan walked up behind her and wrapped his arms gently around her waist before kissing her shoulder. No distraction, no distance, just presence. "You okay?" he whispered softly. Claire smiled. This time she truly was. And strangely enough, the thing that saved their marriage wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't therapy. It wasn't even love. It was one terrifying question asked by a woman brave enough to hear the answer.